Hello everybody, welcome back for another video. Hope you're all doing well and that you're all having a fantastic day, and without any further ado, let's jump right into it. In news that just about nearly broke the entirety of the internet, we had rumors about this before, but the rumors ended up being not completely not true. Ripple Labs is apparently preparing to buy back $285 million worth of shares from early investors and from employees, according to an anonymous source apparently familiar with the matter. The news that we had before, at least a couple of months ago, was that people were, for some reason, expecting Ripple, the company, to buy back a bunch of XRP. Not exactly sure where that news or rumor came from, especially unless you're trying to get XRP called a security. The company would not be buying it back. It just does not logically make any sense. What a lot of people did believe, and this also goes back into the idea at the middle of 2023, where everyone was telling cryptocurrency companies to burn their coins to make the prices go higher. We heard this for Cardano. We heard this for XRP. Just across the board, everyone was saying burn more coins to make the prices go faster. Apparently, the news is that any type of company internal stock that was given to employees or early people who invested within the company, as I'm pretty sure Ripple has been around since like 2012 or 2013. It's been around for a lot longer than people actually assume. They're going to be buying back a lot of that stock. The investment, also known as a tender offer, values the company at a staggering $11.3 billion US. However, investors were limited to only selling up to 6% of the stock that they actually own. Ripple confirmed the tender offer and confirmed that it plans to spend $500 million on the planned buyback. This spending is intended to cover taxes and costs of converting restricted stock units into shares as well. CEO of Coinbase, Brad Garlinghouse, stated that Ripple expects to regularly buy back more shares to provide liquidity to investors. He also explained that the company has no immediate plans to go public in the United States due to regulatory uncertainty. This was also major news a day after we got spot Bitcoin ETFs. The rumors immediately turned to will Ethereum have its own spot ETF? And then that news turned into will XRP have its own spot ETF? And then a number of companies apparently went on to CNBC and they were talking about if they were going to have XRP ETFs. And then that turned back into people assuming that Ripple, for some reason, after the Bitcoin ETFs, that Ripple was going to try and go public. And they've said already before, they need the entirety of the lawsuit versus the SEC to end. Just because XRP got a pass does not mean that Ripple, the company, has. Even more recently, Gary Gensler. Gary Gensler was also in the news. Also kind of like shaking his fist at Ripple, basically saying that he's not done. Like they still have portions of an ongoing lawsuit, so that's going to take some time. As far as we know, the company Ripple does plan on going public, but that's probably sometime in 2025, and dare I say the year 2026, if the SEC continues to do what they are actually doing. Garlinghouse explained that Ripple currently... That's the doorbell, and I'm not getting that. Ripple explained... Wait, hold on. Let me actually check my phone. Nope, no one has texted me. That was a doorbell. Garlinghouse explained that Ripple currently holds over $1 billion in cash and over $25 billion in crypto, mainly in XRP on their balance sheet. Like I said, very, very popular news. There is no reason for the company Ripple to do a buyback of XRP. It literally makes no sense and would only then ease in the idea of classifying XRP as a security because anyway. But now we know that the company plans on buying back stock from a number of their employees. It's usually something that's sometimes strategically done by larger companies to try and boost their valuation and or the expectation that the company might be valued more in the future, and therefore the company wants the stock for themselves so that it simply can't be liquidated or sold on any type of market, and that the company's holding it, and therefore their valuation actually goes up any higher. So therefore, if they're buying $285 million, and should the valuation go up, then therefore they'll have made another $500 million on top of that. Very popular news. That was all over the place. A lot of people, I don't know. People are always going to complain about anything, especially if it has something to do with nothing that has anything to do with them. So cool. That's the Ripple buyback news. And yeah, let's move on. Also in, stock news, leading up to the recent approvals of Bitcoin ETFs, directly investing in Bitcoin, Michael Saylor, the co-founder of Microstrategy, participated in a series of stock sales. Yeah, the opposite. According to data compiled by Bloomberg, Saylor sold between 3,800 and 5,000 shares between the 2nd and 10th of January, coinciding with the SEC's announcement. The transactions are estimated to have yielded Saylor over $20 million, marking the first instance of him selling company shares in over 12 years. This development comes as the company already sold $216 million worth of MicroStrategy stock just last week. You know where this is heading. The expectation is, for those of you who have not been here for a while, MicroStrategy is a very odd company. I probably would not understand it, but I would love to see their balance sheets because I have so many questions. MicroStrategy is a company that really loves Bitcoin. Like, not like a little bit, not like a lot of bit, but like, oh, you guys are married? Like that kind of like tension in the room. And they've basically stated before that they plan on buying all the Bitcoin, if not as much as they possibly can. Max Kaiser recently said a couple of weeks ago that he thinks that MicroStrategy is going to try to own at least 5% of all Bitcoin on the planet. And they seem to be well on their way, because every time we hear about them, it has something to do with the sale of something or the acquisition of more Bitcoin. The current news that we have right now is that they've been selling off their stock. And what they've done before in the past is that they've actually issued debt against themselves, usually in the form of $200 million. And then we had $500 million as well. And that money that they got from the debt, from the loan, they used to buy Bitcoin. And they've done this several times before. So now the idea is that if they have been selling off stock, there's only one thing that they could be going after, and that's Bitcoin. And that's where my question comes in, that I would love to see their balance sheet, simply because where are they getting all of this money from? As long as I can remember, maybe it happened a number of years ago, maybe it happened in the news once and I've simply forgotten about it. But I don't know what MicroStrategy actually does except for issue debt against themselves and accumulate Bitcoin. Because as far as we know and what we've been told, they don't sell any Bitcoin. So if you're not selling any Bitcoin when you've made a hefty profit, where's the extra money coming from? Not many companies have hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars to be able to spend on a digital currency and to basically also do it nonstop. I assume they have their hands in multiple different cookie jars, but I've sat here many a time and I go, oh, cool, they're buying more Bitcoin, but where'd they get that money from? Also, not many companies would be brave enough to issue $500 million of debt against them to be able to buy Bitcoin, expecting it to maybe rise in price sometime in the future. So at the time of me making this video, there's been no confirmation as to what is going to happen, if they're going to be buying it. But every time that we've heard from or about MicroStrategy, it's because some kind of debt, some kind of something that ends up going into Bitcoin. So we'll see over the course of the next week or so as to exactly what's taking place. But the news right now, which was of course very popular news, was that MicroStrategy sold some of their shares. We can only assume if it happened after 12 years, something Bitcoin-y is about to happen. Even more, yeah. The planned sales involving up to 5,000 shares daily are scheduled between the 2nd of January and the 26th of April 2024, with the intention of selling a total of 400,000 shares during this period. And of course, this was also pre-planned. A lot of times we've gotten news before in the cryptocurrency space that, for some reason, about stocks and people selling off stocks. And a lot of people didn't realize that like you had to like tell your investors beforehand that you were going to sell it. Was it with Coinbase? I don't remember the company. There was some major company in the cryptocurrency space who has stock, and they sold off a bunch of it, and people were like, insider trading. And it's like, no, that's not how it works. You have to like really tell your investors, like even sometimes like a year and a half in advance, like, hey, this is the schedule. We're going to be doing it this way. But anyway, that's they're probably buying more news. If they want to own 5% of all of it, they're not going to stop anytime soon. News. And yeah, let's move on. Here's a name you haven't heard from in a long time. Vodafone, not them, a global telecommunications giant, has apparently joined the Chainlink ecosystem as a node operator. As unveiled on Twitter, the collaboration between Chainlink and Vodafone underscores the increasing adoption of blockchain technology in mainstream industries. As a node operator, Vodafone will be playing a crucial role in securing and validating data and transactions on the Chainlink network. The partnership enhances the decentralization and reliability of Chainlink's Oracle network, a vital component for smart contracts to interact with real-world data. Relatively popular news. I was expecting a lot more fanfare from this, simply because years ago, I was screamed at on a near daily basis as to why I was not talking about the greatest blockchain ever to hit the space and how amazingly, fantastically wonderful it was going to be, Chainlink. But we don't get a lot of Chainlink news. A lot of the earliest Chainlink news that we got was from like them launching and the expectations of what people were going to be doing with them. As far as I remember or can understand, Chainlink is meant to be like a platform that links chains. Not a joke. I think it's meant to like add interoperability, and they have oracles and price charts and movements and all these other things. And they're not unpopular. They're just not as popular as they previously were before. We have a lot of companies who are now announcing that they're going to be validators on these networks, and I do like it a lot. I like the idea of companies validating transactions on open networks, especially if we have multiple different companies doing it, because it does then, I don't want to say gives validity to, but it kind of allows other companies to go, they're doing it, so we should do the exact same. But it also allows other people, normal people, who go, I like Vodafone, ? And then they go, I want to also validate transactions as well. It helps to increase decentralization quite heavily just by being in the news. If this sounds familiar, it's not at all, but I know what you're mixing it up with. We had news in the middle of last year, for those of you who missed it. T-Mobile or T-Mobile or Deutsche Telekom, depending on where you live in the world, announced that they were going to be a validator for Polygon. And this is probably what you're thinking of, because Vodafone, T-Mobile, and therefore Polygon and Chainlink. A lot of these companies, this is what I'm always saying, like a lot of the times, if not always, the news that we get within the cryptocurrency space tends to always be quite positive or good in many different ways. I'm always, I guess, perplexed as to why there's so much negativity within the cryptocurrency space, but I assume a large portion of this has to do with people being in the market just to make a lot of money. So we'll hear really great news about adoption and other things like that, but it'll completely pass people by because they don't see the prices rising immediately at the time of them hearing the news, and therefore something must be wrong if I'm not making $9 million. But nope, big companies are starting to validate transactions on these networks as well. It says in this article, for those of you not looking at the screen, Deutsche Telekom, T-Mobile, is also validating transactions on Flow, Ethereum as well, Chainlink, and Cello, I think it's missing an L, CELO, and something called Q. This is happening all over the place. This is why I told you before, like the institutions and the companies have been here for a while, but for some reason, everyone hyper fixated on the idea of the Bitcoin ETFs, and that would be the institutions. Nope, they've been here for quite a while, as far as we can tell, since around 2014, which is terrible that was a decade ago. Have you guys seen that? You must have. I'll say it. I was going to say it because I don't want to make anybody sad, but there was something, I saw a meme the other day, and it was a guy like sitting in the corner sad, and it said the realization that 1970 and the year 2024, I believe it was, are as far apart as I think 1917 and 1970 or something like that. And I was like, oh, that one hurts. Like that one's really like, but you know, anyway, the point is time. Time is flying by, and the cryptocurrency space is constantly evolving and developing, but not many people pay attention to it because they just want like really good price news. But regardless of what's happening, cryptocurrencies and also validators continue to spread, and our market gets bigger and bigger every single day. That's the T-Mobile is running multiple validator nodes, and Vodafone is now running a validator node for Chainlink as well. I don't see any other coins here, but I can assume they're also running other chains as well. And yeah, let's move on. Also sure, why not? Nigeria's SEC, their Securities and Exchange Commission, called SEC Nigeria, what? I would have never guessed that one, has apparently authorized the National Association of Securities Dealers, NASD PLC, long name, to list cryptocurrencies and other digital assets on their proposed electronic platform. NASD PLC is a licensed security exchange operator over the counter for OTC markets for unregistered securities. This development comes barely a month after the Central Bank of Nigeria, or the CBN, lifted the ban on bank-assisted cryptocurrency transactions, marking the end of its 2-year crackdown on cryptocurrencies within the country's banking sector. Nigeria is apparently a very big hotspot for cryptocurrency transactions, like a really big player. They're basically like the Turkey or like the El Salvador kind of equivalent, around the world. Apparently, the market for crypto within Nigeria is also quite large. There are a lot of people who are there who are developing. And this is why you might have heard a number of years ago, Jack Dorsey and Charles Hoskinson kind of taking aim at Africa in general as a place to grow crypto, but they've also mentioned many times before doing work within Nigeria specifically. The issue is that Nigeria is also a country whose leaders and whose banks lied a number of years ago and told people within their country that cryptocurrencies were evil, were terrible, were banned, or could not be used. I mentioned before there was a podcast, this was 5 or 6 years ago, time is flying by, with this guy who I believe was in Nigeria, said he got into cryptocurrencies and he loved it. He was telling everyone about Bitcoin, but he said the problem was that every time he told someone about crypto, they thought he was evil. They thought he was doing something illegal. They were telling him, I'm going to tell the cops on you, and he couldn't understand why. And then he found out that, I'm pretty sure it was Nigeria. And then he found out that apparently there were things that were on news publications, on TV and newspapers, what have you, where people were basically reading that the central bank disagreed with it and they thought that it should be illegal. And therefore, people within the country read that the central bank did not like it and therefore it is illegal. So recently they backtracked, and I assume the backtracking has to do with the fact that they probably realized that they were going to get left behind. A lot of different countries over the course of the last decade have made it their thing to kind of scare the public as much as they possibly can from getting into this market, simply because they understand that cryptocurrencies are going to take over. However, the problem is constantly that the countries who are continuously trying to get people to be out of the cryptocurrency space tend to have the worst economic situations, and it would benefit not only the country but also their people getting into the space, learning more about blockchain technology, which is clearly taking over the world, investing in crypto, allowing the people in that country and everywhere else to also become a lot richer as well. Because this in turn would not only enrichen the country, the government, but also its people, which would allow for more economic growth. But alas, the last couple of years, a number of countries have made sure to hinder any type of growth of crypto within their country. And what I think we're seeing now is that these countries are now realizing that they kind of messed up. I mean, they're still early. Crypto's still fairly brand new, but they realize what they did, and now they're trying to kind of backtrack. And this is why they made sure to say, oh, yeah, crypto now can be used by banks, and the banks can now help people. And they're setting up these other things, like the idea that, how do I say this? It's not that cryptocurrencies weren't a threat, but it's a threat to and I don't care for this term, but kind of like the powers that be in these countries. They understand that their economic situations are absolutely terrible, but it's also because of the people who are running the countries. So what ends up happening is that they'll try and deter you to make you believe that the garbage that they're feeding you every single day is actually delicious when you know it's actual garbage. But at least we're at the point where now I'd rather this happen today as opposed to in the year 2050 in Nigeria or anywhere else for them to kind of do something like this. According to, that's a long name, Ugarankide Longe, NASD PLC Managing Director, the soon-to-be-launched digital securities platform NDSP will open up access to a new wave of young investors and enable the capital market to raise funds through various digital securities offerings. They said, our objective is to empower millions of young crypto investors with access to promising digital assets, ensuring they can confidently purchase in a completely compliant and secure investment environment, end quote, as well. It's really terrible because this also has to do with the level of control as far as making sure that you create a platform that people can only buy from, like one specific place, nowhere else. We create it. And this is what we've also seen. This is basically what takes place in China and a bunch of other places. But I mean, also, let's be completely real here. This is kind of what also happens with every other cryptocurrency exchange around the world. The Coinbase, the Kraken, the Binance, the Geminis. You need to show proof of who you are and where you live and what you do and all these other factors in order for you to be able to even buy cryptocurrencies. And I think it's very odd, and I think it's very telltale, personally. I think it's very telltale of where governments are expecting all of this to go, because this doesn't really happen for a number of other markets. And I'll even simplify it, very simplified, to the idea of like purchasing gold and silver. You can walk into a store, you can walk into a place. If you buy over a certain amount, it's usually like the $10,000 equivalent cap. You tend to have to tell a government official or, something along those lines. But I find it weird how easy it is to get a mortgage in many places, to get a 100% mortgage, to be able to buy gold and silver and also many other financial instruments out there. But when it comes to crypto, there's like a really huge amount of fear. And there's like, no, if you are buying even $1 worth, you have to sign up for this website. You have to show us who you are, especially that got a lot of people as well, because a lot of crypto exchanges, they were telling people that you can use us. Sure, why not? So you put money onto the website, you put $500, whatever, you buy some crypto, but people were trying to take it off. And when you try to take your money off, they go, I'm sorry, you can't. You need to, properly register with us. And it's like, that's how they get you. So cool. I don't mind news like this. I find it a little backhandedly troubling. I can only assume that while I am not in the country, I can assumption that the government was probably buying a lot for themselves and also maybe going through different things to see if it was going to be economically plausible for them to be able to do this. Because you, as a government, you want to make sure that if people are going to be buying, that they do it through you or do it through something else. We've also seen that from far too many countries in the last couple of years, who also tend to be economically interesting, who they develop a platform. It's usually the government and the central bank. Sometimes they're even intertwined, who make a place that basically says you can only buy crypto. You can only buy it here. You can only buy these specific coins. And if you do, it has to be through us the same exact way if you are selling. So they basically, once again, hand the mantle or give the power to the central bank within their country. But old habits are very difficult to break, especially if you have been a country or any type of power over the course of hundreds, if not thousands of years. Let's give it hundreds. They don't want their old system to end, regardless of how terrible it might be for the country or for their people. They still try and keep it together. One of the things that I saw a number of years ago that I learned, or rather, how do I say this? From a lot of the early people within the cryptocurrency space, when they would talk about the future, remember how a lot of times I would always hear they're talking about the year 2029 or 2035, like the future for crypto, especially like a decade ago, was that eventually people would be able to kind of just use crypto on their own volition, as they so choose. Because at some point the governments will no longer have control over it, because the masses will simply go, wait, I can just do all of this directly on the blockchain. I don't have to send it back to the government to cash out to be able to get paper money. Like Bitcoin is the only thing that I actually need, but this also ties very heavily into the idea of hyper Bitcoinization, which is maybe potentially where we're actually all heading as the world continues to adopt blockchain and cryptocurrencies a lot more. But like I was saying, I don't particularly care for this way of doing it, but as long as the citizens have access to it, and also trying to say like we're trying to empower millions of young investors, give me a break. It's just absolute nonsense. You know exactly why you're doing this. You're trying to get your own slice of the pie. But if everything does hold true, and Andreas Antonopoulos and all these other people, if they were correct, we would eventually could live in a world where people have complete control over their crypto. They understand that they don't have to buy spot anything. They can buy the actual asset and own it, and that they don't have to use a third-party software to send it. They can send it already. That's going to be one of the biggest barriers, I think, for a lot of normal people who are not in the market. People are so used to having to send it through another party. This is why I remember last year we had news from Visa and MasterCard who were like, yeah, you must remember this for those of you who weren't here. Visa basically said if you want to send your Ethereum, you can do it through Visa. So basically you would get your Ether somewhere and you would send it to them, and then you would write down in a note or something online who you're trying to send it to, and then Visa would send it to them. And I was like, you can just do that by yourself through the blockchain. There's no need for an extra person. So once the masses are in the market and once the masses realize that they can just send crypto by themselves, it's basically going to be a whole new world. I do sincerely hope that you have all enjoyed. I know the last couple of week has been quite all over the place with the intensity of the cryptocurrency markets and with the spot ETF approvals and all the rumors that are circulating around and all the tension in the air and everyone looking forward to this, that, and the third. It's a lot happening all the time, but that's the market that we're in. It's an intense one. I do hope that you've all enjoyed. I do hope that you all are having a great day, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, wherever the heck you might be. I do hope it is absolutely fantastic. Thank you all once again for watching, listening, liking, commenting, and or supporting. And I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See